Hello, friends. Today we will tell you a story that has been passed from generation to generation called Travis Walton abduction.
Once upon a time, in the 50s, a very peculiar event happened. John Walton was a man with a curly hair and blue eyes. He experienced one of the strangest events that can happen to a person. Like every winter day, he and his co-workers went to the forest. The lumberjack job was not the best paid, but it allowed everyone to live. The cold of the place was so intense at night that you could feel it to the bones. Only the heat from the fireplace was what allowed people to stay alive.
John lived with his wife, Lucy, a slim, straight, blonde-haired woman of short stature with a warm smile. Every morning she woke up, covered his husband, and set the fire to heat of the coffee. She lived happily, accompanied by her great husband, who was sure that he loved her as much as she loved him. Despite being married for 15 years, they had not been able to have baby yet, but the company was never lacking. A dog that they later named Parker came to the house attacked by the smell of her food. Lucy fell in love with him from the first moment and decided to have him with her at home.
Although he always went with John when he went into the forest, as she helped him with the animals that might be close to them. Winter's days were easy at all. It was enough to walk a few meters away to get lost in the fog, which was so thick that sometimes they ever felt like they were in the middle of the sky, where the largest street showed the highest part. As night approached, John and his co-workers headed home, although one always stayed to take care of the firewood in the forest. The others returned home because they also need to take care of their belongings.
The day John stayed in the woods, something strange happened to him, something that would change his life forever. As usual, John brought his flashlights, snacks, and tobacco, and regardless of rain or air, Parker was always by his side.
That night, as it was about to strike 3 a.m., John noticed that strange things were beginning to happen. Parker seemed to be very restless. He was alert for any noise, and it seemed that he sensed something bad that would happen. Nerves attacked John, who walked in, as did his canine friend on alert. It seemed that they were observing him from everywhere. He felt the presence of someone, and began to think that someone wanted to attack him.
Suddenly, through the mist, he could see a shadow. It was huge, the size of two people. He panicked and wanted to see what the thing was. When he took the flashing light, it didn't turn on. He panicked more. He had no voice to scream. He had no control of his body to run. Suddenly, he saw the shadows began to appear more often.
In a moment, John was looking up at the sky, light flashing overhead. The air was so strong that it moved the branches of the bigger trees. At that time, the only witness he had of his abduction was his dog, who was left barking towards the sky after seeing how John disappeared.
The next day, when his co-workers arrived, they found John's flashlight. They noticed that around, in the middle of the trees, there were circles and lines drawn. They immediately returned to alert everyone. They said Lucy did not know what to do. Her love had left without a trace. She didn't know if he had run away or if some tragedy had happened to him.
Further, her friends researched and researched, without finding any clues. The only thing they found were those figures, circles and lines that formed every large figures. His companions realized that the marks each night originated disappeared into the forest.
So they decided to go into the night inside the forest. As night came, they could hear noises as if it were a factory or someone noised old car engine. Suddenly, the air grew stronger and lights began to appear in the sky. Two shadows come down from the airship, hovering above them. When the shadows were close to them, one raised a hand and pointed upward, where John was slowly descending in a kind of elevator. He was asleep. When John reached the floor, the shadows disappeared, and John woke up immediately.
The last thing she remembered was that he was with her dog Parker, in the middle of the woods, when she heard noise and with light blinded her eyes until the moment she woke up back on the floor.
When she arrived with Lucy, the only thing she could see is that her husband was not the same. He had marks on his arms that looked like figures in the forest. In a few time her story became known in all parts of the world. He was studied by experts on the topic, and the only thing they could notice were the marks on his arms, without any explanation. Until they, and since that day, John has lived calmly with her marks that remind him of the event that could be taken as false by many people.